Welcome to Wild Questions. I'm Sabbath Kapahu, and this is the moment we take each week to have the conversations we know are important, but we don't always talk about. It's about the stories that matter behind the questions that we ask. I'm joined by my friend, colleague, and CEO, Dr. Rob McKenna. Dr. McKenna, what are you thinking about right now?
All right. You don't even know. I know you have no idea what I'm going to bring up. And what I've been thinking about is, what would I say to a spouse or a significant other of a person who is using the Wild Toolkit, our whole and intentional leader development system in their organization? So imagine that your spouse is using this whole process of assessment and a deeper dive into who they are as a person and a leader across multiple domains of their life, across their whole year, and you're not a part of it. So my first question, Sabbath, is, like, these are spouses who have maybe not seen that infrastructure of what this person is actually learning and growing on. And I wanted to ask you before I give, because this is kind of pulling this out of the clouds right now, but I think it's important. So Will has not used the Wild Toolkit.
No.
And you have. I don't even know what the right question is, but what do you think his experience of you is, if you were to guess, related to, and you have lots of different pieces of your developmental picture. So it's not just the Wild Toolkit, but other things are changing. But there is a lot of process of intention I know that you've experienced and I've experienced. What do you think he's experiencing?
That's such a good question. I almost feel unqualified to answer because I want to answer the way I think he should be feeling about my growth or, my failures, but I don't know if I want to answer the way he's feeling. Um, However, I will say that this season, and I used the Wild Toolkit for the first time, I would say like 4 or 5 months ago. And it was my first exposure to it. Um, it's changed the way we have our conversations.
Huh.
And it's I think, again, we should really have him on here and hear what he actually thinks, because it's probably really different. We couldn't be more opposite in our personalities and the way we process information. So, but I have become a more intentional listener. And I think that has changed the way our conversations go. Um, Not that I don't interrupt, I still am an interrupter, which I'm working on.
That's interesting. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna speak right at the camera. Like, because I'm gonna turn, because there's effect with that, right? I want to talk
Yeah.
to all the spouses out there or significant others, loved ones, and just tell you very briefly of what your person has experienced. So what they've been going through is this process where they get feedback reports every month that have all kinds of psychological information about their own process and development. But so it's not just scores. Like, they do receive like the best scientifically validated assessment of personality, like things about them that are not changing, not likely to change. They have that information. They're getting that through this process, but they're also assessing things like their fulfillment across multiple areas of their life. They're being invited to set goals, and not just to set goals in different areas of their life, but actually to identify their purpose. So one of the things I do every year is I identify my purpose in my family. So the level of intention, and that's an open box. That's like me taking the time to narrate, why am I here for my wife and kids in this season? They're getting information on the experiences they've had and how those have shaped their development, the experiences they want next. They're beginning to build their own strategic network of support. So they're increasing that support. They're also being asked questions about calling and purpose, like, why at the deepest levels are they here, and for who, like for who or whom, like who are they supporting, and how, and could they be more intentional about that? I say that to you because anytime there's a change in a person, we know this psychologically speaking, that can actually cause friction.
Mm-hmm.
Even if the change is something that you wanted for years in this significant other, it can be weird because it's different, and difference oftentimes causes us pressure. So if you're experiencing some of those things, like, that are good things, but they're different and they're kind of creating that rub, it could be us. And I don't mean like we did it. I mean, it could be their own process of really diving into their own development and not just looking at a score and saying, here's my number or my color and I'm done, but saying like, what does that mean? What does it mean that I become more introverted as the day goes on? And how does that affect my family and my workplace? So I hope that helps you make some sense, and maybe someday you'll experience it as well. But I just wanted to speak to all of you just for a moment.
It's so good because the reality is every time we answer a question in the toolkit, it is bringing up a bunch of things from our past and our future and where we are right now that we probably haven't taken the time to think about or process. So it's triggering all of these things, good or bad, or
Yeah.
like in the moment. So,
And one more thing, Sabbath, that you just brought up that I think is important, that I also want to say to those significant others in these folks' lives, is that this process also does not occur in a vacuum. We say that all the time. And so as I was describing those things that a person is discerning as they work through all this, they are thinking actively about you
yeah.
and its impact on you. Because, for example, if I feel called to go do something, and I just do that in a vacuum, that's completely ridiculous and unfair to the reality that my wife and I are called together.
Yes.
And so in every part of this tool, it also is urging that kind of a conversation, which also, if you haven't had it before, may feel a little different. So yeah, that's what you said made me think of that, Sabbath. So
Yeah. So what we're saying is you're not alone in the reality that you have now found yourself in because your spouse is walking through the process of the Wild Toolkit. We're here
yeah, yeah, yeah,
and we're with you.
yeah, we are.
Yeah. All right, Rob, thank you so much for letting us know what you're thinking about today.
Thanks, Sabbath.